You know, when we think of John Adams, we usually see him as the second president, kind of sandwiched between the legends of Washington and Jefferson. But there's this incredible story that often gets overlooked, the story of a forgotten financial war that he fought, a war that literally saved the United States from completely falling apart.
See, when Adams took office in 1797, he wasn't handed a country on the rise. He was handed an absolute mess. The nation was drowning in debt from the Revolutionary War, rebellions were bubbling up, and you had these massive European empires, Britain and France, just circling, waiting for this whole American experiment to go down in flames.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth did this famously stubborn, prickly, and, let's be honest, deeply unpopular president manage to pull the country back from the edge? Well, the answer isn't just in the political maneuvering. At its core, it's a story of pure economic survival.
To really get what he was up against, we need to paint a picture of just how bad things were. This wasn't a minor slump. The United States was teetering on the brink of total failure.
And look, none of these were small problems. The massive debt, that meant European bankers saw America as a huge risk, so getting a loan was next to impossible. The war between France and Britain, that directly threatened American ships, and those ships brought in tariff money, which funded pretty much the entire government. Throw in the fact that there was basically no navy, and the country was ripping itself apart politically, I mean, it was a perfect storm.
And that's when the whole thing just explodes. The biggest threat wasn't an army marching on Philadelphia. No, it was an economic war fought out on the open ocean, a war that was about to bankrupt the entire nation.
This whole mess becomes known as the Quasi-War, and that word, quasi, is key. It was an undeclared war. We're not talking about massive armies clashing. This was a fight for survival, fought ship to ship on the high seas, all to protect the trade that was the absolute lifeblood of the U.S. Treasury.
And you can just see how quickly things spiraled out of control. It starts with a treaty with Britain that France sees as a total betrayal. So they start grabbing American ships. Then you get the infamous XYZ affair, where French officials literally demand a massive bribe just to sit down and talk about peace. As you can imagine, the American public goes ballistic, war fever grips the nation, and by 1798, this undeclared war is officially on.
So you've got this war fever sweeping the nation, right? Everyone is screaming for blood. But Adams, he makes a very deliberate, very calculated choice. He's not going to get dragged into a massive bankrupting land war. Instead, he decides to build a naval shield to protect America's money.
And this right here really lays out the two paths he could have taken. You had the war hawks, many in his own party, who wanted all-out war. That would have meant a mountain of new debt, financial ruin. Adams chose the other path, a limited, defensive war at sea. The goal wasn't to conquer France, it was to protect the cash flow. It was the smart, fiscally responsible choice. And it was also a politically dangerous one.
And he didn't just talk about it, he got to work right away. He creates the Department of the Navy, pushes Congress to fund powerful new ships like the legendary USS Constitution, organizes the Marine Corps, and gets them out on the water with one clear mission: protect American trade. He was literally building an economic shield out of timber and cannons.
But building that shield, well, it came with a huge price. To pay for it all and to try and keep the country together during this crisis, Adams made some decisions that would make him enemies everywhere, even inside his own political party.
So, first, how do you pay for a new navy? Taxes. And nobody likes taxes. The Federalist Congress passed heavy new ones that were so unpopular they actually sparked another rebellion. And then came the really infamous stuff, the Alien and Sedition Acts. Passed in the name of national security, these laws were used to silence dissent and go after political enemies. Adams signed them into law, and they remain a deep stain on his legacy.
The backlash was brutal, and it came from all sides. But the deepest cut, the absolute ultimate betrayal, came from Alexander Hamilton, the leader of Adams's own party. Hamilton writes this scathing public attack and then actively works behind the scenes to make sure Adams loses his re-election. Just unbelievable.
So here he is. He's politically isolated, his own party has turned on him, and he is facing total political ruin. And at this moment, he makes a choice that he knows will end his career, but one that will save the nation's future.
He chose peace. Completely defying the war hawks in his party, he sends another round of diplomats to France, and in 1800 they sign a treaty that ends the war. His political opponents screamed that it was weakness, a betrayal, but Adams knew a full-blown war would have absolutely bankrupted the United States.
Now, to really understand the political price he paid for all this, you just have to look at the numbers.
In 1796, he won the presidency by just 3 electoral votes. 3! He came into office with 0 political capital to burn.
And 4 years later, after the new taxes, after defying his party to make peace, he loses decisively to Thomas Jefferson. The very decisions that secured the nation's finances directly cost him the presidency. It's that simple. He paid the ultimate political price for doing what he thought was right.
So he leaves office, a one-term president, widely seen as a failure. But here's the hidden victory, the one nobody celebrated at the time. He left the nation's credit intact. He left its trade routes secure, and he saved the Treasury from a war it couldn't afford. He created the financial stability that his great rival, Thomas Jefferson, would inherit and use to build the country.
And it all just leaves you with this one final thought. History tends to build statues for the leaders who win glorious wars. But maybe, just maybe, the tougher, greater act of leadership is having the courage to prevent a disastrous one, even if you get no credit for it at all.